Hello and welcome to this midweek edition of the Rebels247 Round Table. I'm David Johnson along with Webb Lewis today. Brandon Red is on assignment. Well, it's Texas week. Texas week finally arrives for the Ole Miss Rebels, a benchmark game, if you will. Ole Miss obviously surging ahead under head coach Hugh Freeze, but really yet to get that signature victory over a traditional national power since Freeze's arrival. And Webb, when you look at everything going on out there in Big Sky country right now, it almost looks like it's set up on a tee for Ole Miss Saturday night.
It really is, and with everything going on at Texas, I mean, there's turmoil there, and Ole Miss fans with decent memory can relate a little bit to just turmoil amongst your staffers, your boosters, and everything, because people are upset there. They have high expectations at Texas year in and year out, and David, I've never seen, and I'm a little younger than you are, but I've never
Thanks
seen a coordinator lose his job after week two, after a week two loss, or that. I mean,
I remember Danny Ford being fired at Arkansas after the Razorbacks lost to Citadel in their opening game of a season one time. But as far as a high-profile program like Texas making that kind of change on the run in the midst of a season, it's hard to find a comparison. Manny Diaz, of course, fired on Sunday after Texas gave up over 600 yards of total offense to BYU, more than 500 yards of that coming on the ground. The BYU quarterback runs for more than 250 yards running the zone read against the Texas defense, and they're going to see some of that Saturday night with Bo Wallace. And then you factor in the Longhorns could possibly, and we'll know more as this week progresses, have to go into the Ole Miss game without their starting quarterback David Ash, and behind him is the younger brother of Colt McCoy, Case McCoy. Make no mistake about it, Case McCoy is not Colt McCoy by any stretch of the imagination. The Longhorns certainly have to have some apprehension if Case McCoy is their quarterback Saturday night. There's a true freshman, Swoops, that awaits behind McCoy, much like the Devontae Kincaid situation at Ole Miss. Texas does not want to play him. They want to redshirt him this year. They may be forced to force him into action, however, if Ash is not playing and McCoy doesn't play up to what they hope he will.
If McCoy has to go, I have not seen anything out of him. And David, you and I have been studying Texas all week, looking at Texas from last season and things like that. I haven't seen anything out of Case McCoy that would lead me to believe that they're not going to have to pull that true freshman and put him onto the field. McCoy just doesn't have it. I don't think he has the backing. I know he doesn't of his fan base, and any browse on a message board, you can see that. I don't know how the team feels about him, but I don't know. I just don't think he's got what it takes to lead that offense in the situation that they're in right now without their starting running back, who is a big part of their team.
Yeah, that's Dage Johnson, and he is definitely out with a left ankle sprain, will not play against the Rebels. Getting back to the quarterback situation at Texas, David Ash did not practice Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday. Today is Wednesday. We'll see if he goes this evening, and if he does, we'll have an update for you on the board. But right now, not looking good. Head injury, so you got to think concussion right there, and then an injury to his right shoulder, which is his throwing shoulder. So at this point in time, it doesn't look like David Ash will play, but Ole Miss will prepare as if he is the quarterback. Now, an interesting note: if McCoy is in there instead of Ash, you can expect a similar type Texas offense. If they have to go to the true freshman Tyrone Swoops, I would expect Texas to be more ground oriented and not put the ball in the air with the true freshman. Swoops is 6'4", 245 pounds, so he would be a load to stop on the zone read or any kind of option type offense that Texas chooses to roll out there against the Rebels. But I don't think Mac Brown has Swoops throwing it all over the field, so it really puts some limitations on their passing game if they go with the true freshman Tyrone Swoops. Right now, it's looking like it's going to be Case McCoy at quarterback for Texas, but never rule out David Ash. We'll see as the week goes on.
Well, tell me this, David. You get into the game. Say Ash is out. Texas goes with McCoy and things go south in a hurry in that first quarter, maybe the second quarter, do you bring him off the bench? Do you throw that redshirt year away, especially even if you have the knowledge that Ash will be back the next week?
Well, there's more on the line, one would think, by reading all the headlines coming out of Austin,
Sure.
than a win or a loss Saturday night for this Texas program. I mean, let's make no mistake about it. Mac Brown is on the hot seat.
Absolutely.
Big time hot seat. So you would think he would be very quick to make those kind of decisions in that ball game Saturday night if things are not going the way of the Longhorns early on. Yeah, I think you could see swoops out there. Ran with the second team Texas offense on Tuesday at practice in Austin, while Case McCoy worked with the ones. David Ash did not dress. And again, we'll see what happens on Wednesday evening out in Texas, and we'll let you know about the quarterback situation. But here's the other thing, Webb. You almost have to go with experience at that quarterback position, and that experience in the form of McCoy. Again, if Ash doesn't play, McCoy has 6 career starts under his belt. He hasn't performed very well, but he has started 6 occasions for the Longhorns. And the reason you want to go with that experience and why that's underscored even more is the fact that Texas has problems on its offensive line right now. They could not open holes against BYU, nor could they provide David Ash with pass protection. Ash spent a lot of time on his back that night last Saturday against the BYU Cougars. So major offensive concerns for the Texas Longhorns, and we haven't even begun to talk about concerns Texas will have on the defensive side of the ball after firing Manny Diaz and bringing in Greg Robinson, a 62-year-old veteran of the coaching ranks, to coach their defense. Robinson, formerly the head coach at Syracuse University, went 10-37 there between the 2005 and 2008 seasons. Also spent a year in Austin as a defensive coordinator back in 2003. And to be honest with you, has never had a whole lot of success.
No, he hasn't, and I wouldn't expect from a scheme standpoint for things to get crazy for him as far as the difference from what they were doing with Diaz, which obviously wasn't working. But I just wonder, a lot of times, and I can kind of somewhat speak from experience. I've been on the receiving end of a good thrashing on the running game, playing in the 4-2-5 defense when I was a freshman. You'll focus on stopping that quarterback, and the next week, what happens? Their running back kills you.
Well, there's no way Robinson can come in and wave a magic wand over this Texas defense and fix it. They're not going to do a lot of stuff differently because the last thing they want out there is consternation and mass confusion on the defensive side of the football Saturday night. So, A, the terminology has to stay the same, and B, any kind of wrinkles that Robinson wants to put in the Texas defense, well, it's going to have to be simple.
Absolutely. It's got to be simple. The terminology, I mean, you've only got a handful of days to work on this. Not a lot can change as far as that goes. You've obviously got to address. And look, the defense Manny Diaz was running, it's not that it was designed not to work against the option. It was just players were probably out of place. He didn't coach them up just right. So
they were out of place. If you go back and look at the BYU-Texas game film, you can see where the BYU offensive line in its entirety is blocking down one way, and Texas is just totally misaligned from the get-go, and there's no way that they could fill their gaps. And, you hear this said a lot by defensive coaches. The Longhorns had terrible eyes against BYU.
Absolutely. And, I'm really interested to see. Now, look, BYU's quarterback, I'm not taking it. Texas's defense played terrible. Their quarterback is a great athlete. He was tremendous at pulling that ball, and he's got a burst of speed that I don't think Bo quite has that kind of speed. Bo runs that option great. But I'm telling you, I think where you're going to see Ole Miss successful is Bo giving that thing off because they're going to be so concerned about him pulling it and beating them just as BYU did. And you're going to see Jeff Scott with a lot of yards.
All right, I got a question for you. Texas just simply could not stop a running quarterback last week against BYU. How much of Barry Brunetti is instituted into this game plan Saturday night for the Ole Miss Rebels?
Well, you and I've talked about this before. You got to be careful not to be so transparent that, okay, 11's in the game. He's obviously going to run the football. And honestly, look, Barry's athletic. He's elusive somewhat. But when it comes to making the decision on the read option, I take Bo over Barry on that.
Agreed.
Now, Bo said Monday that he's done well to only take 2 probably somewhat significant hits on his shoulder this year. Learning to slide a little bit has been difficult for him. We're looking at, he ran the ball 18 times against Vanderbilt. It could be more than that against Texas because I think they're going to call read option a lot. And you're going to see a lot of things come off of the read option, passes and somewhat. Read option is going to be the base of the offense for Ole Miss, I believe, on Saturday.
All right, folks, with all that said, it's still the University of Texas. These are still the Texas Longhorns, college football royalty, one of the traditional powers in all of college football. Austin, Texas, a very difficult place to go in and win. Still expect there to be a battle on the hands of Hugh Freeze and the Ole Miss Rebels Saturday night. For Webb Lewis, I'm David Johnson. Thank you for listening to this special midweek edition of the Rebels 247 Round Table.